You just finished lunch and you want something sweet, but you do not want the guilt. So you reach for a can that says diet, 0 or light on the label. Have you ever actually stopped to ask what is inside that can? And more importantly, what it does to your body over 20 years, not just today? For most of the last century, sugar was the clear villain in every health conversation. The World Health Organization recommends keeping added sugar under 5% of your daily calories, which for most people is less than 1 can of regular soda. So the food industry built an entire category of products around one promise. All of the sweetness, none of the sugar, none of the calories. That promise is bigger than most people realize. Right now, there are more than 23,000 products worldwide that contain artificial sweeteners. They hide in sodas, flavored yogurt, protein bars, chewing gum, even ketchup and bread. Chances are you have eaten one today without thinking twice about it. So what actually is an artificial sweetener? Chemically, most of them trigger the sweet receptors on your tongue far more intensely than sugar does, using almost no calories to do it. The first one, saccharin, was not even invented on purpose. In 1878, a chemist named Konstantin Fahlberg was working with coal tar compounds in a lab, forgot to wash his hands before dinner, and noticed his bread tasted unusually sweet. That accident became the first artificial sweetener on the market, decades before anyone understood exactly what it was doing inside the human body. Saccharin had a rough middle age. In the 1970s, regulators proposed banning it outright after lab rats fed enormous doses developed bladder tumors. The public backlash was massive. People hoarded pink packets like they were contraband, and Congress stepped in to block the ban. Instead, lawmakers forced warning labels onto every product that contained it for the next 2 decades. It later turned out the rat tumors depended on a quirk of rodent biology that does not apply to humans. The warning label was finally dropped in the year 2000. Sound familiar? It is basically the same argument playing out again today, just with a newer sweetener wearing the villain costume. That newer sweetener is usually aspartame, discovered by accident too in 1965 by a chemist testing a completely unrelated ulcer drug who happened to lick his finger. It became the single most studied food additive in history. And then in 2023, the World Health Organization's Cancer Research Arm classified it as possibly carcinogenic to humans. In the very same week, a separate WHO panel said the existing daily safety limits were still fine, unless you were drinking an unrealistic number of cans a day. That contradiction confused a lot of people, and it is a big part of why this topic still feels murky, even with thousands of published studies sitting behind it. So which is it? Is a diet soda a clever way to dodge sugar's damage entirely? Or is it a different problem quietly wearing a friendlier label? Part of the confusion comes from the fact that 2 very different kinds of science keep asking this question and getting different answers. The first kind is a randomized trial. Researchers assign real people at random to drink artificial sweeteners or not for a few weeks or months, then measure their weight and blood sugar directly. Those trials have generally found small, modest benefits for weight loss. The second kind is a cohort study. Researchers follow thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of real people going about their normal lives for years or decades. They record what people naturally eat and drink, then check who develops disease down the road. And those studies have repeatedly linked higher artificial sweetener intake to worse outcomes. More obesity, more type 2 diabetes, more cardiovascular disease. Here is the catch with that second kind of study, and it matters for everything that follows in this video. The people who reach for diet soda are not a random slice of the population. They are often already trying to manage their weight, already worried about their blood sugar. It is a bit like noticing that people who buy running shoes are more likely to complain about knee pain. Did the shoes cause the pain? Or did people who already had bad knees start buying running shoes hoping to fix the problem? Separating those two explanations is one of the hardest problems in all of nutrition science, and it is exactly the trap researchers have to try to climb out of here. There is also a genuinely strange biological twist hiding underneath all of this. Your tongue is not the only place with sweet taste receptors. Nearly identical receptors line the inside of your gut, and some research suggests they can trigger hormone responses, including tiny bursts of insulin, purely from the taste of sweetness, even when zero sugar actually enters your bloodstream. One team of researchers found something even stranger. When they gave people artificial sweeteners, some participants' gut bacteria shifted in ways that measurably worsened their blood sugar control. Other participants barely reacted at all. Your own gut microbiome, unique to you, may partly decide whether a diet soda is metabolically invisible or genuinely disruptive. So step back for a second. Regular soda's harms are well documented at this point. Weight gain, type 2 diabetes, tooth decay, a long list most people already accept without much argument. The entire diet soda category exists specifically as the harm reduction alternative to that list. But what happens when the safer swap turns out to carry its own asterisk? For decades, individual studies on this question have pointed in different directions. Some found real harm. Some found nothing at all. Different countries, different populations, different sample sizes, enough contradictory headlines that most people just tune the whole debate out. The way scientists try to cut through that noise is by combining many separate studies into one large, statistically weighted analysis. It is essentially averaging many smaller neighborhood surveys together to get one much clearer picture of the whole city, instead of trusting any single, possibly flawed survey on its own. So after all these decades of arguing back and forth, what actually happens when you take every major long-term study on this question and add them all together into one number? A team of researchers led by Zhangling Chen set out to answer exactly that. They combined data from 11 separate long-term studies that had followed real people for anywhere between 7 and almost 29 years, adding up to more than 19 million adults in total. Across that combined follow-up period, 235,609 of those participants died. Compared with the people who drank the least, the people who drank the most artificially sweetened beverages had a 13% higher risk of dying from any cause at all. And specifically, a 26% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. Each single additional can consumed per day was linked to a 6% rise in overall mortality risk and a 7% rise in cardiovascular mortality risk. Cancer told a completely different story. Across that same combined dataset of more than 7 million people, there was no meaningful link at all between artificial sweetener intake and dying from cancer specifically. A relative risk of essentially 1, statistically indistinguishable between heavy drinkers and light drinkers. The relationship was not even a straight line. Below roughly 1 can a day, the extra risk barely showed up. Above that threshold, the risk curve for overall mortality bent sharply upward, while the risk for cardiovascular mortality just kept climbing steadily with every extra can, no safe plateau in sight. And here is the twist that keeps this from becoming a simple verdict against diet soda entirely. In a secondary analysis, the researchers look specifically at what happens when someone swaps 1 daily can of regular sugary soda for 1 daily can of the diet version instead. That swap was linked to a 4% lower risk of dying from any cause and a 6% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. In other words, diet soda was not harmless. But compared to the drink it usually replaces, it still came out ahead. As for why a drink with almost no calories would carry any mortality risk at all, the researchers point to a handful of biological leads rather than one confirmed mechanism. Disrupted gut bacteria, altered insulin signaling through those same intestinal sweet receptors, and low-grade inflammation linked to regular intake, the same inflammation that quietly drives a lot of cardiovascular disease. It is worth repeating the honest caveat here. Every single study folded into this analysis was observational, not a randomized trial. Which means none of this proves that the drink itself is the direct cause of those extra deaths, only that the two are consistently linked. The researchers rated the overall quality of this evidence as moderate for cardiovascular and overall mortality, and low for the cancer findings, using a standardized scoring system built specifically for judgment calls like this one. So where does that leave you and the can in your hand right now? If you already drink sugary soda every day, this research suggests that switching to the diet version is still, on average, the better trade. But if you barely drink soda of either kind, none of this data gives you a reason to start.